Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Clinton Boyd Jr. I'll be the moderator for today's parent panel. I'm gonna give some of our participants and virtual attendees a little extra time to get settled before we get things started with the panel. So another minute or two. Well. I'm just so glad to be back at the North Carolina Home Visiting Parents and Education Summit. Um, Again, my name is Dr. Clinton Boyd Jr., and I'll be moderating today's panel with parents, right? I'm gonna go ahead and get started. And for those folks who are still trickling in, they can just fall in line. The goal for today's parent panel is to have a very lively and robust conversation and to really hear directly from the 5 parents who will be sharing their perspective today about things related to COVID-19's effect on the family, issues related to equity, the topic of resilience, and more important than anything else, just them sharing with everybody in attendance what their experience has been in the various home visiting and parents education programs they've had the benefit of participating in over the past couple of years. But I would be remiss if I wouldn't start off by acknowledging the many organizations that are largely responsible for the parents and the home visiting and parents and education summit. So I have to start with Smart Start, because without Smart Start and some of my good friends and colleagues over there, I wouldn't have an opportunity to be joining you all today. From there, I definitely want to give a special shout out to Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina, excuse me, the foundation specifically, the Child Trust Foundation, the Weiner Family Foundation, the John Rex Endowment, the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, the Division of Public Health, and last but not least, the James B. Duke Endowment. And so with that said, I'm gonna go ahead and really jump into the meat of today's conversation. Again, I'm Dr. Clinton Boyd Jr. For the last couple of years, I had the great fortune of spending time within the state of North Carolina, specifically in Durham, during my time as a postdoc at Duke University. And since then, I've had an opportunity to transition back home to Chicago, while I'm now serving as the executive director of an organization called Fathers, Families, and Healthy Communities. But enough about me. Let's get to the parent panelists. And so at this time, I would like to invite our panelists to share briefly, emphasis on briefly, a little bit about themselves. And I'll just stop there. I'll pass the ball to Kayla Lawson, and you can start with your introductions. I think you're on mute, Kayla. If can't hear you. Well, let's let's go with a mid-play audible real quick. And April, you're the next person on my screen.
I'm April Dyer. I'm a parent, and I also am with the Family Leadership and Education Coalition in Randolph County.
Cool. Next up is my good sister, Miss Charnel Williams.
Hello, everyone. My name is Charnel Williams. I am a parent and on the panel of the Home Visiting Collaboration Board member. I was introduced to the program with the NC Baby Lust program participant, and I reside in Greenville, Pitt County. It's a pleasure to be a part of the panelists.
Cool. Well, ecstatic to have you with us. Next up is Deysi Reyes.
Hello, I'm trying to, okay, you can see me now. My name is Deysi Reyes. I was introduced to the program through the Healthy Beginnings. I'm a stay-at-home mom of 3 girls, a 10-year-old, a 7-year-old, and my 1-year-old. And I'm just excited to be part of this panel. Thank you.
We're glad to have you. And next up is Jessica Dahmer.
Good morning. My name is Jessica Dahmer. I live in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I was introduced to the Hbpe board through the Healthy Beginnings program in Winston-Salem, and I'm also a parent as well.
Cool. Glad to have you.
Thank you.
Numbered among us. So I'm gonna go back to Kayla. Can you say something? Okay. Well, we will move forward with the panel, and I will hopefully we'll be able to get your mic taken care of, and when the time is right, feel free to jump in and join the conversation. So just getting things started, one of the first questions I have for the group is simply related to your introduction to home visiting and parents education, right? And what was your experience like? So anybody can jump in and share their thoughts and perspective. This is a safe place. It's a nurturing atmosphere. And as we practice during our run-up session, you know, we're here to support one another, and it's just very important that we are able to share our personal narratives, right, as it relates to home visiting and parents and education in a way that resonates with so many of the virtual attendees. This is your time. You have the mic, you have the floor. Take it and run with it.
I think the first time that I had an experience with home visiting was when my daughter was in preschool. She was about to start preschool, and they had to come out to my home. It was her teacher and the 2 assistants. They came out to my home and they let me know exactly how everything was going to go, what she would be needing, and they just wanted to meet my daughter and meet me. And that was the first time I've ever had anything to do with home visiting or parent education about what was going to go on in schools or what was going to go on in anything like that.
Got you. Anybody else want to jump in and detail their experience?
I was actually, the first home visiting that I had was when I was still pregnant with my son. The Healthy Beginnings program, you can sign up when you're pregnant, and then they continue to visit bi-monthly until my son was 2. And then also through Novant Health in Winston, there was actually a nurse that came by a couple of days after I had my son and just made sure that, you know, he was latching on to see if I had everything I needed, and to just check my mental health and then check his weight to make sure he was still getting the nutrients he needed.
Got you.
My first experience with Hbpe was a few years ago at the health department. I was signing up for WIC, and I was a fairly new mother to my second child. So he was like maybe 6 or 7 months old. Then I was pregnant with my now 2-year-old daughter. So I was very overwhelmed. I was in a very depressive state. And a caseworker from the NC Baby Love Plus program introduced herself to me and told me about the benefits of being a part of the program, what assistance they could do, what help that they can give, home visiting, just different things, different tools that they can align me with that could help me. My experience was very delightful. I just wish it was a little bit longer, but it was very great. I wish that I would have known about this prior to me being pregnant with my son when he was 6 months. So that way I would have already had things set up and aligned. But I'm very grateful that I was able to have the help that I did receive through them.
Cool. I'm already picking up on a common theme, but I'm gonna, give some of the other parent panelists an opportunity to weigh in. And I will hate to put somebody on the spot, but I'm eyeballing Deysi right now. And I'm just curious to know if you have anything you would like to share with the group.
I do. I was actually trying to look up the program because I was introduced to the home visiting through the Healthy Beginnings, but I also went through a program where a nurse would actually come with me to my prenatal appointments. And I'm trying to look for, I was just talking to her not too long ago, and I asked her for the exact name of the program because I really enjoyed what she did for me. But I should have had it up before. But the way that I actually asked her for the details of how I was introduced or I was set up with the program. And she told me that when a mom, come here, baby, when a mom or a pregnant woman has like high risk pregnancies, then your medical provider will set you up through this program, and it's covered by Medicaid. And I guess that's how she was able to, they were able to enroll me in this program because my first 2 pregnancies were high risk pregnancies. And to me, she really made a difference in my life because even when the pandemic started, because I was pregnant when the pandemic started, and she would still show up even though they wouldn't let anyone but myself go into my appointments, she would still show up for me and stay in the parking lot and wait until my appointment was done and would ask me like if I needed anything. So I felt she went out of her way to be there for me, even through these hard times where everybody was trying to stay home, was trying not to have contact with anyone. She really showed up for me, and I was really grateful for her. And I let her know that. And then once I had my baby, that ended, and then I had my first home visiting session through the Healthy Beginnings, which I only was able to do one because that's when the restrictions started and they weren't able to come. But that's how I was introduced to the home visiting.
Okay. Kayla. Okay, I think
Can you hear me?
oh
Does it work?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I know you were probably busy trying to get everything situated with your audio. So I'll repeat the question for you.
Mhm.
We're just curious to know what your introduction was to Hbpe and what was your experience like?
Yeah, my name is Kayla Lawson. I'm with the Family Advisory Body and the Hbpe Collaborative Board. I'm a mom to a 6-year-old boy and a 2-year-old girl. And I was introduced to home visiting through the health department 5 years ago when my son was a year old. I personally had never heard of home visiting or the Parents as Teachers program. But for me, it was an awesome discovery because I've now had someone to, give me advice on various things that I needed help with. And I also didn't feel as alone in my parenting journey because, it's very isolating. And the Parents as Teachers program has been a wonderful contribution to our community, not just as well as for me and like other parents and families that I know. And they have been providing resources to mothers and families with young children, which some of our families need various different assistance and either do not know how to access the assistance or do not even realize these programs exist.
Got you. Well, as I just listen to everybody's responses to the question, it's very clear to me that each and every one of you all benefited from structured, formalized supports that came by way of the various programs you all participated in. That's obvious, right? But what I'm also hearing underneath all of the comments is this whole social support piece, right? It appears that the various providers you all engaged with were there for you in key ways. Some provided instrumental support, right? Some actually provided informational support, making sure you all knew about the various resources that you all had access to. And in many cases, they went the extra mile to connect you with those resources. And, when I think about just home visiting and parents and education programs, everything that you all just laid out is ideally how things should go. It's not always the case, but it should be the case. And I'm glad to know that things worked out in you all's favor. So moving into the second question, I'm curious to know what kept you all going or gave you strength in the face of the challenges you all encountered as a parent. And just to probe a little bit more, right? One of the things that I definitely heard in the previous, to you all's response to the previous question is COVID, right? And how that kind of was a game changer. It completely altered the way in which you all were accustomed to receiving supports, and many of you all had to pivot midway through. So again, I'm just curious to know what helped you all overcome the various obstacles you all encountered as a parent.
I would have to say, like, the obstacles I have faced, being a single mom and going through the challenges of being in I call it a desert county, would be my faith in God. Especially with COVID and those challenges with COVID and being isolated, and you can't really go out, and you have to be away from people and restrictions everywhere. It would have to be my faith in God.
Cool.
I would agree with April. COVID, like everything else, has took a turn on a lot of things, even now. So we're still, I'm not saying that we don't face obstacles, but we're still facing obstacles every day. And so I agree with April, faith in God and my higher power, strengthening me, keeping the faith that this is only temporary. This is not a forever permanent thing. I had to continue to rely on that, because otherwise I would have went crazy thinking that this is going to be how life is going to be. So I had to remind myself constantly, okay, this is only temporary. Set up my social supports as much as I can, keep my circle tight, reach out to whoever I need to reach out to continue to strengthen me, because I know I can't do it by myself. Being a parent, no matter if it's your first child, third child, fifth child, you always need those social supports and those family supports around you to make sure that you don't go crazy, for one,
Mhm.
and to just provide you with that extra help. So I'm very grateful that we are able to do like Zoom sessions and things like that to still keep some form of normalcy around during this time of COVID. But definitely God has kept me afloat.
Got you.
And I just want to second family and then the social support, because I'm a single mom as well. And my dad's retired, but he is my babysitter. Like he's a good babysitter too, an old man, but he still keeps up with my son. But there's some days I'm like, you know what, we wouldn't make it without, my family support. And then of course my son, there's little moments where I'm having the worst day in the world, and then he'll just walk about it, well, you're my hero, mommy. And your heart stops and you're like, okay, what was I worried about? Because now my heart's melted and my day is going to be good because, he just said I'm his best friend or his hero. So definitely family.
Got you. Anybody else want to chime in?
Yeah, I want to say a couple of things. I think that the pandemic it affected at least my family in so many ways, because I had just had a baby. I had my baby in May of 2020. So technically my baby's a pandemic baby. And I had to leave my job that I was at for 8 years because I had to take care of my newborn and my children were doing school at home. So it really was gonna affect my husband and I's finances because we were losing my whole income. And my husband was working for a person who would pay him like every 2-3 weeks. So it was not a consistent income. So we had to make a decision on like, how are we gonna have consistent income to make it, not just through the pandemic, but in general, so my husband, he's a very smart person, and he throughout the years learned a lot about how to remodel homes. So I told them, I'm like, I have this person who's willing to give us work, but we have to put our foot forward and really believe that we can do it. And I said, putting God first, he's gonna guide us, he's gonna open the doors. And I'm very grateful that that we did trust in him. And so far I can't complain. We were able to start something and we are still going strong, but that was very scary. It was like one of the most difficult decisions that I've ever had to do, was leave my job, because I feared the unknown. I didn't know what was going to happen, where our income was going to come from. But I think it really worked for us, that we were challenged in this way, as scary as it was. And we've been doing very, very well. And the last 8 years, I worked for the Department of Social Services here in Forsyth County. So I knew all the resources that I could get from there. And you know what? I was not embarrassed to ask for it. I was not embarrassed to apply for food stamps. I was not embarrassed to ask for Medicaid, because that's what those resources are there for, when people, when we need them. And they're not there for us to some people say, oh, people take advantage of them, but no, like most people really need the help, and that's why they're there. It's not because they're trying to cheat the system, is because that's really a helping hand that help us throughout like these times that all of us were struggling in different ways. So now I struggle with my baby that has social anxiety because she cannot be around people. The only people that she can be around is just her immediate family, which is my husband, me, and her sisters. Everybody else, my mom, my sisters, cousins, she cannot be around. And so now we stepped out of like our struggling financially. Thank God that we have that is, is being managed well. But now I have to deal with like my baby and not being able to be around a lot of people. So I think it's all in stages, and I think we can at least my family, we've been taking things one day at a time, but knowing that there are people out there that are still willing to give us a helping hand.
Got you. Yeah, I really appreciate you for sharing that. It definitely resonates with what we've heard from other panelists on the question, right? And I'm just curious to know if we have anybody else who would like to share their experience.
Yeah, as far as when I have to face challenges, my inspiration is just, my children are watching me and I know they're following my example. So giving up is not an option.
Got you. Yeah, simply put, huh? So, just lifting up a comment from the chat by Dr. Askew, faith is a protective factor, right? And that was definitely something that reigned supreme from many of you all's responses to the question. Just your unwavering, unyielding, steadfast belief in a higher power, always being in control and providing you all with divine guidance when it's a time of great hardship that you're enduring. And for those of you all in the audience that are also spiritually inclined, we too know what it's like to be experiencing hardship and to have to turn to that one source to help us get out of said hardship. And just having the opportunity to witness your prayers being answered is always a beautiful thing. And so I just couldn't miss out on the opportunity to give praise to God. So with that being said, let's go ahead and move to the second, or the third question rather. And I just want to hear from you all, what was your experience like transitioning out of the program? For those of you all who have transitioned out of the program. I know it's a couple of you all who have yet to go through that formal phase out process. And so we definitely want to hear about your experience too.
My transition out was pretty simple. She left preschool to go to kindergarten. They pretty much, told me that this is the school that she will go to. And that was that. She transitioned out of the preschool that she was in, and that the partnership had sent her to. And it was really odd for me because it wasn't the school that I would prefer her go to. So I actually asked her teachers, is there any way that I can get her into the city schools or, something like that? And, they tried to guide me on how to do that, but it was a hard process to get her out of that county schools into the city schools. So I had to find a different way to do things. And so finally I just found an opportunity to get her into a private school with North Carolina school choice by the way of an opportunity scholarship. So
Cool. And next woman up.
I'll go, I guess. Sorry, Charnel. So with Healthy Beginnings, the way it works is there's like a group meetup 1 month, and then the next month there is a home visit. And so with the pandemic, my son turned 2 in 2021, I think. Yes. And so there's a home visit every other month, and then the group meetup. When he turned 2, he actually aged out, and that was in the midst of the pandemic. And to me, it felt a little bit like an abrupt ending, because we were doing Zoom meetups, but we weren't having that physical connection. Because my son actually loves Sharon, who is my advisor. And actually her boss, like everyone, we've gotten to know really well. And so it was just kind of like we're missing that hug that when we first see each other, that that warmth that you can't really get through a Zoom meeting, or through Duo is what we use. But we still keep in contact, and I'm still on the board. But it's and we still get invited to all the group functions, but just not having that bi-monthly check-in is just, I didn't realize Jacob was going to age out at 2. And so it kind of felt sad, but we're still connected, I guess.
Yeah, I have a similar experience to Jessica, actually. The program that I was introduced to was the NC Baby Love Plus program in Pitt County, and that was only for 18 months. So after the 18-month period, that was it. So I still have connections with the ladies that were running the program, but then after that, time period, there's not really much that they could provide after that. And I understand that's just how the program is set up. I just wish that there were more resources after that period. Like, hey, after the 18 months, there's maybe a step up program. Like, okay, after your child ages out of this step, then you can move up to this part of the program. So that way you still feel some type of connection. And you can still be able to get those resources that are desperately needed and that connection. We did a lot of Zoom meetings, which was awesome. Like Jessica mentioned, it was right in the height of COVID when I was really deep into the program. So it wasn't a lot of things that they could do just for, safety precautions and things like that. But I just wish it was more, just more access to those things for those kids that have aged out of the program. So that way the parents and the child could be more, socially ready for that. Transition, like anyone else, is very hard, especially for me. So even though they were telling me, hey, it's coming up, the transition period is coming up for us to kind of get you out of the program, it's still a hard pill to swallow when that 18 months is over with. It's like, oh man, I won't have that Zoom checkup meeting or things like that, just make sure everything is okay. So I'm hoping with us having these talks and these panelists things that we can kind of set some other things up for different counties so that we can have that help that is desperately needed after what it said age period.
Sorry about that. Can you all hear me now? Okay. Anyone else wants to share that perspective? Hey, Kayla, we got somebody in the chat calling you out. They want to know what you think.
Yeah, when my son transitioned out, it was in the middle of the COVID pandemic. So we no longer were getting to do our home visits, and it was all our visits were over Zoom, which he did not respond well to. He wouldn't pay any attention to it. And of course, we were no longer getting to actually engage with the parent educator, with them actually there and us participating in the activities. But we also missed the graduation ceremony. So all the kids would have a graduation ceremony at the end, but that had to be called off as well. So they ended up just mailing him his certificate. So we were kind of like bummed out about that. But the main thing was that, we had the experience. We got to go on all these different outings, and we got, endless amounts of parental knowledge from our parent educators. So we were definitely thankful for the experience.
Cool. And I want to say last, but definitely not least, Deysi, do you have anything to share?
No, you can move forward.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, I think this is, just repeating Charnel, right? Transition is difficult. It's hard, especially for kids. Where the adults and the parents may have a good understanding of the change that's coming, it can also be very difficult for those kids to, after they've grown accustomed to receiving or benefiting from services in a particular way, and then to kind of have to make sense of what's next, right? It definitely has implications for their social emotional development. And I really agree with everyone on the panel who stated that additional support should be made available to the parents during this transition period. And moving to the next question, I definitely want to hear from the panelists about, in your view, how can program staff build mutually respectful, goal-oriented relationships with parents?
I think just, being there, communication is key. Honesty is a big part, and just like honesty and communication is like number one.
What type of, just to further unpack that, when you say communication, right? What does that look like, right? Because communication can take many forms.
I mean, like most programs, like I want to know, like underlining things, like don't tell me this, but do this. The underlining part of programs, sometimes you don't see, I guess, like, oh, well, we don't do that. But at the beginning, you said you did. Oh, we don't do that anymore. I just, that communication. Don't, if you say something, make sure you follow through with it.
Yeah. Stand on your words. Word, as my people up in New York say, word is bond. So cool. Anyone else? Charnel, I'm looking at you right now. That doesn't mean you have to respond.
Don't look at me.
That doesn't mean you have to respond, but
you done called me out, so I have to say something. No, but I agree with April with the communication part. I just wish that these programs are more upfront on just kind of that they're on our side. So that way, like when I first got introduced to the program, there's a lot of things that I withheld from the program because I wasn't sure by me saying said things, would it in turn be a negative consequence for myself or my child? So if the programs would have said, hey, you know, we're advocating for you, we're on your side, you know, we're not going to tell social service, you know, of course, if something crazy is happening, but we're not going to tell social service these things or whatever, just letting them know that, you know, this is a trustworthy place, safe place that we can, that you can unpack whatever is going on with you so that way we can help you. I think that would have allowed more time for us to kind of divulge a lot more things quicker than me kind of just being, you know, safeguarded with some of the things I said. And then later on, as I'm peeping it out, making sure that it is a safe place, then me spilling it out. I would have gotten the help a lot sooner if I would have said those things, if they were more upfront with, you know, their goal of helping. And with me not knowing about the programs prior to being pregnant, then I wasn't sure, you know, what it was really about, what was the main goal. So if it was set up maybe like during prenatal care or just something else, so that way we are more educated on the help that we are received and need, I think it would have been a lot better for myself and maybe other mothers as well, to get the help and to be more receptive of the help that we receive.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely raise a valid point related to trust building, right? And knowing that the home visitors, for example, or anyone else who's representing the program is actually going to have your best interests at heart and really do everything in their power to make sure you feel safe, protected, because there have been incidents that I'm pretty sure a lot of folks on this call can attest to, where the opposite has happened and it has had negative ramifications or consequences for families, right? And I think part of what's also underneath your comment, Charnel, is this whole piece possibly around implicit and or explicit bias, right? You have folks coming into households who may, for a variety of reasons, have a disparaging view of the family that they're serving, right? And so it's just extremely important that we are always mindful of that as program providers, knowing that some of our parents have legitimate concerns as it relates to the supportive services, the social service providers really having their best interests at heart. So next up, speak now or forever hold your peace.
I would like to share something really quick. I think that sometimes, like when I'm asked questions, like I'm scared to say like the wrong answer, that to me, like I'm under the perspective that maybe they think it's the wrong answer, but that's just the reality of things. And I'm just gonna put this as an example. Like when I'm asked, do you read to your child every day? And I say, I lie. I say yes, but I don't. But I say yes because I'm scared to be judged, like, or for them to say, you're supposed to be reading to your child every day. And sometimes I don't have time, you know, to read to my child every day. So I will say yes, just so they don't tell me that what I should be doing or what I'm supposed to be doing. When in reality of things, like sometimes it's just impossible. Like I try to read to her as much as I can, but because of maybe fear or something, I say that I do when I really don't. And then there's times where parents, like they would want to, but maybe they don't have access to like the books that they need, you know, to read to their child. But I'm just saying that maybe it's just like the fear of being told that you're doing something wrong when you're trying as hard as you can to do the best you can as a parent, but sometimes you can't, or there's not enough time in the day. But if I was told like, it's okay if you don't read to your child every day, but read to them as much as you can, because even that little bit helps, or it's good for your child. So just that supportive type of language, where, not everybody's perfect. Not everybody reads to their child every day, as many times a day as they need to. So just that supportive language, and to where it's not, if I don't do something, it's bad. But if I do as much as I can, it's still helping your child in so many ways. And I think that, to me, that just supportiveness when they speak to me, or that reassuring me that even the little bit that I can do, it's still good enough.
Got you. Well, I do want to slightly deviate from the scripted questions we had to get to something that has come up a couple of times in the chat, right? That I feel is relevant to the conversation we're having now. And it has everything to do with the celebrations, right? The graduation ceremonies, and what could potentially help to make the graduation ceremonies more helpful or impactful within a virtual atmosphere, right? Charnel, how you said earlier, we're still in COVID, right? It's like a pendulum, right? It just keeps swinging from side to side. And just when we thought we had one foot out and we were getting ready to put the other foot on the other side as well, we got pulled back in, right? And so just curious to know if anyone has anything to share about the graduation ceremonies and how we can really take more advantage of the virtual platforms that we are using more frequently now.
I don't know about virtual wise, but I know that my daughter's school, when she graduated kindergarten, we had just hit the pandemic, and they were like, well, we're not going to have kindergarten, a kindergarten graduation. And I was like, I was devastated, because this is, a milestone, and they had already ordered cap and gown and, stuff like that, because she does go to a private school. So finally they made a decision that they made a whole day of it, and each child got like 15 minutes, and their families could come in the church or whatever and sit, and their child got to walk down the aisle, and the teacher called their name, and they got their little diploma or whatever and got to leave, and they got to take pictures in the back and then leave. Each family got 15 minutes of that during the day. And they set those time slots to where you could sign up for that. So that was perfect for our situation, for her kindergarten class anyway.
Gotcha. Does anyone else have a perspective they would like to share with the group?
Well, this is just using a virtual platform that I've experienced. My sister graduated from college during 2020, and they did something online, like they put everybody's picture, and they took a picture and then had like a little words. They kind of did a virtual graduation, even speakers and stuff. We did it. We got celebrated or got a bunch of food and then brought it to the house and watched it together. It wasn't the same, but it was still celebrating, kind of make your own party. So we still, and they did an outdoor one later, but still doing something for him when she actually graduated.
Cool. Anyone else?
I know they didn't actually do a virtual graduation ceremony for my son or anything like that, but I think it would just be maybe getting on Zoom and just like have them call out their names, just give each child like that individual recognition, something simple, but
Got you.
that would be a positive way, if it had to be done virtually.
Got you. Yeah, recognition is always important, especially for kids, right? We definitely want to celebrate the milestones, want to support them as they continue to just grow and blossom and thrive and flourish. And positive praise is always something that I believe we should be pouring onto our children and into our children, because when they do something wrong, as parents, we all know, we all know how we tend to show up in those moments, right? So this would be a good opportunity to offer a counterbalance. So going to the next question, and this is something that I'm sure everybody joining us today is eager to hear, and that's you all's perspective on how program providers, funders, state policymakers, et cetera, could better engage parents and their families in early childhood services. Imagine you all had a magic wand or something, right? And you can just make this system so much better than it is at the moment. What would that look like?
Well, like I said, I live in a dry county, or a desert county, as I call it. With Randolph County, we don't have, listening to the ladies, in our other meetings and stuff like that, talk about how they had these different programs, like the Baby Love program and the Healthy Beginnings and stuff like that. We don't have that in Randolph County. We don't have that in Randolph County. We don't have anything like that in Randolph County. We have WIC, and that's about it. I would like to see across the board in North Carolina, like the same level of programming everywhere as you would find in Charlotte, as you would find in Raleigh, the same in rural areas, because they deserve, and we all deserve, the same treatment and the same programs as everybody else. These big counties and these big cities, the little cities too, they deserve these programs as well. I wish that I had a nurse come with me to my appointments. I had a high risk pregnancy as well. I was in the hospital for 3 months when I was pregnant with my daughter. They weren't going to actually let me leave. And I actually had to carry around an oxygen tank with her because I was intubated while I was pregnant with her. But like Deysi said, or one of the ladies said, that they had to get they got a nurse coming with them to their prenatal. That would have been beneficial to me and amazing to me to have that support system, especially after I gave birth and had problems her latching on and stuff like that. It would be amazing if North Carolina could get all these programs to everyone in all these counties, not just certain counties.
Got you.
And I think part of it, just piggybacking on what April said, is making it more standard of care. I'm in Winston, where there's the Wake Forest Baptist system or the Novot system, and I'm privileged to have the choice. With Medicaid, I could have gone to either system and still been given the same opportunity. And it saddens me to hear stories like April's, where all children are special and all of them should deserve the same chance. And so I think it needs to become standard practice of care, with the pediatricians. Again, I had the choice of pediatricians, and all of them have lactation consultants. That should be the same at every pediatrician's office. And all of this needs to be paid through insurance. It shouldn't be an additional cost, whether you've got Blue Cross Blue Shield or Medicaid. This should all be a part of standard practice of care.
Mhm.
And bringing the community together, saying, okay, this is what you should expect when you have a child, from birth or from pregnancy through birth and through the next few years.
I got you. You all are raising some very valid points. Things that I definitely think about in my own personal work, right? So I'm glad to hear you all are also thinking about this in the same way. Others?
I agree with both ladies, April and Jessica, that it needs to be in all areas, not just the higher, paying counties. It needs to be in the rural counties, especially to break those barriers that we see all the time. I feel like that will close the gap in a lot of negative, mental health care and things like that a lot of mothers are still battling with. If we know about these things, these resources that are still readily available. Also, the funding for the programs, like I'm a peer support specialist, so I'm always constantly looking for resources to help others. And there's a lot of resources in Pitt County, but the funding is not there. So the program still, is on the website, contact information, but I call them and say, hey, we haven't got the grant, or we haven't gotten the funding yet to support said program. So I wish that those things were readily available if I had a magic wand. Also, I lost my train of thought. But yeah, I just wish those, with us knowing about the programs, I don't know if social media can be a platform for us to know about those, our pediatricians that we visit, our OBGYNs that we go to for prenatal care and postnatal care, like all those things, they need to be aware of those programs so that way the mothers can be aware, so we can spread the knowledge. It could be one big community versus us just finding it out at the health department one said random day. I wish that we would have known about these things well before we quote unquote needed them, so that way we can better prepare.
Right.
I 100% agree with having a common place to find care. I'm a good researcher. That's how I found it. I went and researched. My aunt works for social services. That's how I found out. But not everyone has those resources, and to find a list, especially at the doctor's office. That's one place that, hopefully every pregnant mom is going, is the doctor's office. That they should be the first stop. Okay, do you have food? Okay, do you have how's your mental health? I know when I had my son for the first year, whenever I took him to the pediatrician, I answered a questionnaire asking about my mental health. And there was also questions do you feel safe in your home? And have you worried about food? And so this should just be that next step. And I don't even know if the doctor looked at it, but somebody needs to review it and then get them in touch with. There should be a number you can call and saying, this is what I need, help me.
Yeah. I think that's the purpose of those questionnaires. I think of why they would ask us is to make sure that they know, okay, the mother is struggling with this, so we can provide them with those programs. But like you said, I didn't receive, that information. I had to kind of find it on my own, or talk to the program that I was already into with the NC Baby Love Plus, and they were able to provide me with other resources. But had I not had that backup option, the doctor really didn't help in that way with, my mental health. And mental health is so important, very important, especially as being a new mother to any amount of kids that you have. I mean, postpartum is depression is something dangerous if you don't tackle it first on. And if we would have had those resources readily available or known about them, then we can, just be able to educate ourselves and others a little bit better. So.
But just something with what Jessica said about filling out those forms. And when you say, and they ask, do you feel safe in your home? Do you have food? Do you have this? Do you have that? Going back to some previous questions about communication and honesty and filling safe and trusting these things, when you answer those questions, sometimes you have to balance that, because if you don't, CPS is not friendly. And sometimes they don't, they're out to, I feel like they're out to get people that are good people that are not really doing anything wrong. And I'll be the first to attest to that, because I know my neighbor called them on me just to be spiteful because she was getting kicked out because of me, because I reported her living there when she wasn't supposed to and being on the property when she wasn't supposed to. So she called them on me, and they came out and was doing a report on me. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. You hear her laughing downstairs, like it was outside. And the lady was like, well, I still got to take the report. I'm like, well, I mean, that goes back to being trusting other people. When you fill out those forms about, do you feel safe in your home? Do you have food? Do you have this? And I feel like if we fill out those forms, sometimes parents are going to be like, oh yeah, 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 yeah. So they don't, because they don't want somebody to come and take their child.
Yeah.
Daisy and or Kayla, do you all have anything you want to share?
Yeah, I just want to agree with everything that everyone has said. And I think that a lot of times we're just scared of the system. We're scared of being our kids taken away. We're scared of us looking like the worst parents when we might just be struggling. Like I know I suffered with postpartum depression after my first baby, and I didn't even know I was going through because nobody ever really talked to me about it. I came to realize that I was going through it like after years after, and I'm like, this whole time I've been struggling with postpartum depression, but because I didn't know I didn't have nobody to help me through it. I didn't know I was going through it. I was just always sad or always thinking that I was a bad mom, but I really wasn't. It was my first baby. I was learning, but I didn't have anyone to guide me through the process, So I also agree that the system is sometimes a little bit unfair because I'm being provided a service that somebody within this state, just because there's a county border, when for example, if I live in Forsyth County and I had to move because I had to be relocated to another county because of work or whatever. So I'm receiving services in this county, but if I move, those services are not going to go with me because that county doesn't offer them. So that's going to impact me, my children, my way of life, because I'm moving, maybe not by choice, but because, for whatever reason. And now this is pretty much taken away from, so I think about that. And I do think it's unfair. I think that there needs to be a system where all the programs are connected, are linked together, county through county, no matter where it's at, no matter how rural, no matter how, they should be linked in ways where every county has access to it. Everybody, every mom, every dad, every child, no matter where they're from, no matter what, it should be all linked, because it's important, because we can talk about a million scenarios of how people could change, because one change could be very drastic, no matter how small. And we really, until we live it, we don't know how it really impacts like a family, a child, special needs, no special needs, food, no food, it's just it's across the board. And there has to be a link between all these programs within every county. Definitely, that should be like one of the first steps that if it was up to me, and that's one of the things that I would really want to focus on, is being able to that every child, every parent have access to the same resources throughout the state.
Mhm. Yeah. I'm sorry. Y'all had me finna jump in full professor mode. But before doing so, Kayla, do you have anything you want to share with the group?
I would just say, that back when I had my son, in 2015, I was actually embarrassed to answer those questions about depression because, like, I don't know, it was like mental health was so stigmatized. I guess it was just that it was like, I was ashamed of it. So I just wish that there had been someone there to like advocate for mental health a little more. Like, this isn't something to be ashamed of, like it's okay to ask for help. And I suffered through like many mental breakdowns during that time because I had like very, very, very severe postpartum depression, where I was like locking myself inside my bedroom, lights off. I would take care of my baby, but that was literally all I would do. So I was just doing things that wasn't me at all. And I was too scared to tell the doctor, that I, had the depression or I was having a problem. I was like, it's just a hard situation. I don't need help. I'll be okay. It's like, it just felt like to me, it would be important that, that mothers know that it's okay to open up. They feel comfortable opening up.
Got you. Yeah, you all have definitely said a lot, all of which is valuable, right? And I just pray that everything that you all have shared with our virtual audience did not fall on deaf ears, because I think that, matter of fact, I know that the solutions lie with the people. And when you just think about the inequitable access to resources throughout the state of North Carolina, there are certain things that can be done to increase the amount of resources that go into those counties that may be underserved for a variety of reasons, right? And I think the best thing that can be done when those decisions are made to bring new resources into counties that have been under-resourced and underserved, the power brokers need to consult with members of the community, right? That at every step of the process. If they do not, they run a risk of having this top-down approach that is divorced from the realities, the everyday lived experiences of the parents and the families who are desperately in need of those services. And so my passionate plea to those individuals on the call who have the power of the pen, who have the ability to change systems and ensure that they are working in an equitable manner for the parents and the families that you all are tasked for serving, is prioritize the voice of the parents in the process. Because each and every one of you all have shared an invaluable perspective that I feel needs to be institutionalized, right? In ways that are going to lead to sustainable change. So again, just thank you everybody for your comments and your remarks. Now I would like to ask, or better yet, pose my final question to the group. From your perspective, what was the key takeaway from today's discussion, right? And also, do you all have any parting words for the virtual attendees for today's session.
Just thank you everyone for being here, but I hope this like makes a better change for all of us, like just better change. Like I hope this impacts, makes a change.
I would say inclusion versus exclusion, like making sure that someone mentioned earlier about us, I think it was Deysi, where she said that Deysi, excuse me, I'm so sorry, where she was saying that all 100 counties need to kind of have the same forum where every county is providing the same type of service, regardless if you move out of a county or not. So having that, I think would help out a lot. Advocating, educating those on mental health. So, that way we won't feel so alone or feel so ashamed when we do go through those times, and having more discussions like this, more open discussions, honest discussions about what we can do to change. There's no other way to change unless we talk about it, talk about the good and the bad, so that way we can learn from it and grow from it. So I'm very grateful for being a part of this panel and sharing our opinions. I've learned a lot so far, so I look forward to hopefully the next session that we may have, and to those who have the power of the pen, like you said, to make those changes. And it's great to be a part of it.
And I just want to say one thing that I've learned from this panel is that a lot of the thoughts that I've had, the ideas that I've had, I'm hearing it echoed by the other moms in this group. So it's the need for change and the need for, equity for health and for families is across the board. I feel like it's everyone's asking for the same thing or looking for the same thing. So it's like we have one side that's already there. And so if there is a way to change, I think we'd all be on board with it. Because all of our stories seem to be very similar, but different.
Right.
I just think it's 2022 and it's time that these changes we definitely have these changes implemented and actually put into action, because, it's been long enough.
I want to say thank you, because it's really, this summit has really made me feel like maybe sharing my story makes a difference, and maybe will motivate, some of the people that work with these programs to expand, because it's very important. So I'm grateful to have been asked to be part of this, because I'm talking and also reading the chat, and I can tell that like everybody is engaged, and it's a priority to get families on with, with as much help as they can receive. And that I really appreciate everybody that is listening, because sometimes that's what we need. We need somebody to listen, so that we can, now that we know, we can start acting on it.
Is that it? Cool. Well, see, how do I want to frame this? Well, before doing that, we have a little extra time left over, and I first just want to, tell you all how much I personally appreciate you all for joining the parent panel, sharing your perspective, really getting your voice out there in a very powerful way. Hopefully your words resonated with everybody in attendance during today's session, and that they walk away feeling inspired, especially those on the call, right, who are providers, who are funders, who are policymakers, who are change agents, right? Hopefully they heard everything that you all had to offer, and they're going to go back to their respective offices, home or at the facilities where they work, right? And think about how they can institutionalize so much of what you all shared today into how they conduct business at their respective establishments, right? We have a couple of questions that I would like to pose to the group that are actually from some of the virtual attendees. One thing that really stood out to me as I was reading the comments in the chat and also looking at the Q&A is this whole piece about how to better leverage these virtual platforms that we now have at our disposal, right? I do believe that this has been one of the, if there is a way to look at the glasses half full opposed to half empty, I think the virtual platforms that we have started to use on a regular basis has helped to really eliminate some of the geographic barriers, physical barriers that may be in place when we think about program implementation. And so this question specifically is about how helpful are virtual meetings, right? Would they be enough for you all as parents to feel supported?
I think that they're definitely helpful. And I mean, if nothing else, just because, you know, having childcare, if I have to go out to a meeting is a struggle for me because, you know, my husband works full time and overtime a lot of times. And so I don't necessarily, you know, a lot of things I wouldn't be able to participate in a lot of the support groups I've participated in, just various other things, if it wasn't for the fact that they were virtual. So yeah, I think that that's actually one definitely positive when it comes to virtual programs.
Mm-hmm.
I would say yes and no. It's kind of a catch-22. I would say yes, it would help, especially with those who cannot leave or maybe have transportational barriers. But for those that maybe don't have internet access or
Talk about it.
Or are uneducated on, you know, the phones or how to access the Zoom, that might be another frustrating barrier trying to get to that resource because they don't know how to, or don't know how, or not educated enough on how to use that device to get to that platform. So on one hand, yeah, on the other hand, no, in my opinion.
Got you.
Yeah, because we're talking about rural areas, you know, some of those rural areas have dead spots.
Yeah.
And you can't get to that internet. I know that there are several areas in Randolph County that they don't have like Spectrum won't go out and put like internet, and the only internet they can get is CenturyLink, and it's really, really expensive, and it's really, 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 really slow. So most people can't afford it, especially, you know, some of these families that need this help. So like Charnel said, it's a catch-22. In most cases, yeah, but in a lot of the cases, these families that probably really, really need these services, they're not going to have either the internet or the education enough to use the phone or, you know, stuff like that, because of these dead spots and not having access to the internet.
Anyone else? Cool. Yeah, I think you all bring up a very important point, and this is also something this is an issue that was magnified during the pandemic, the whole piece around the digital divide, right? And looking at those communities that historically have went without access to various forms of digital technology. This is another opportunity for us to talk about why those types of resources are needed within those rural counties, right? Or within those urban neighborhoods that are low wealth, under-resourced, underserved, that are also dealing with similar issues. Because in some ways, if you think about that CenturyLink example you gave, April, that sounds like exploitation. You know, that sounds like pushing an already impoverished community into deeper poverty. And something needs to be said about that as well. But that's a conversation for another day and perhaps with another group. But it also highlights the interconnected nature of what we're doing here for the purpose of this panel, and how it cannot be divorced from a lot of these larger structural systemic issues that are also tied to issues of racial inequality and inequities, right? That also has implications for individuals coming from low income communities. So I can keep going and going and going like the Energizer Bunny, but I'm gonna just stop there. And again, I just wanna say thank you to everybody who was with us. Oh, I spoke prematurely. We got 2 more questions. So from Book Babies, their question is, if digital equity is addressed and technology support can also be provided, would it still be helpful to offer programs virtually? With this, I mean service providers not necessarily being from the community.
Well, I work for the Y, and at the pandemics, there's about integrative health instructor, and so I do things like diabetes prevention. I do movement for better balance. We've opened up a lot of programs that are normally in person, and we have done them virtually, and we have been successful with them. But again, the same things Charnel and April have mentioned, you have to make sure there's internet, and you have to make sure they have the knowledge of using it, of how to, do the Zoom meeting and the different platforms. But that's, can be solved, with a phone call. You just have to take the time to make sure everybody's starting at the same page, which is what equity is. So I've seen it work in other avenues, but I still miss the bodies, because as I mentioned before, that warmth you get from just seeing somebody face to face. But we're at a different time, I guess.
Right. Does anyone else want to respond to the question?
I mean, just like she said, you would have to still make sure that they know how to use the internet. They know how to, that information is there. I don't see how you would be able to provide that for everyone. Some people are still scared of the internet, especially today. They don't want their kids on the internet. They don't want, they don't want older people, they don't know how to use the internet. So, you still have to make sure that they know how to use it.
Got you. The last question I have for the group pertains to what I consider to be marketing and communications, right? And this is something you all touched on earlier, but what would you all consider to be a good method to get the word out regarding existing services and or to just raise awareness about various programs that are available to parents.
I mean, doctor's offices, that's where you've got to start, is where they're going for their prenatal care, or in schools. So wherever their families are, that's where you have to go. I mean, social media is a great platform, but there's other places, you know, wherever you find that community, that's where you should do the grassroots campaign saying, hey, did you know this was here? And then the first number that somebody calls when they need help, that person should have that answer. So it's also everybody being able to answer the same question the same way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if they call, I know that when I call social services, it's like, it gives me, you know, my worker's number, and then I have to leave her a message, but she don't call back for like ever. And then I have to call her back again, and she don't call back. Like, it's like I have to call 3 and 4 times for them to even call me back. And that's like weeks later. So if there was one number, and like you can call social services and they answer instead of putting you on hold or letting it ring and ring and ring, and somebody at social services will answer and tell you, okay, well, this service is available to you. This service is available to you. This service is available to you. These are the services available to you. Or if you go in, instead of having to sit there and go to this window or this window and them really not be helpful, have them let you know what services are available to you. All the services that are available to you, I mean, it's there. You can let people know, like, right there at social services, what services are available. But they don't want to take the time out. And it's like, you can't, like, when you call or you go up there, it's like they're too busy to hear you. They're too busy to take the time out for you.
Yeah. Part of what I hear in you all's remarks deals with what I consider to be like the broken lines of communication, right? That typically exists within some of these larger state-run and operated, or county-run and operated bureaucratic systems and structures, right? That may be dealing with what I consider to be managerial disorganization, right? You know, and I think there are system changes that must occur within those agencies to improve the quality of services they deliver. But this is the type of feedback that honestly those supervisors need to receive from the recipients or the apparent beneficiaries of said programs, right? And again, this is why it's important for us to continuously include and embed the voices and the perspective of the parents and the families in these in our approach to improving the overall quality of child serving systems. And so I can officially say at this moment, we are at time. And you all have done such a wonderful job. You all definitely made my job easy. I take my hat off to you. Words are inadequate to express how humbled and honored I am to share the virtual stage with you all. And I would also be remiss if I was not going to speak to the fact that there are no fathers a part of this conversation for the second year in a row, because I moderated this session last year. And so I would love to see a parent panel in the future that also includes fathers, because we too are parents. So with that being said, I leave you all in peace, and hopefully you all walked away from this session enlightened, and I look forward to future opportunities to engage with you all around this very important and timely work.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Boyd, for all the parents. Thank you so much. We love hearing from you. And as you can see from the comments that have happened, and then I'm sure will continue to happen in the chat, everyone appreciates hearing from you and everything that you have to say. So thank you so much. We loved having you here. I will be posting a survey link in the chat for feedback on this session. So we appreciate any feedback that you can provide. As a reminder, our next session is coming up at 12:45. So thank you all for attending this session. And again, thank you to Dr. Boyd for moderating this wonderful panel, and for each of you on the parents on the panel for everything that they could provide for all of us. So thank you again.
Cool. Peace.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Clinton will get to work on that.
Oh yeah, don't worry.
Yeah.
I'm more than glad to assist.
Yes, excellent. Wonderful. That's a goal for this year. So,
Cool.
yeah. Thank you
Cool.
so much for being here. Thank you for your help.
Yeah, no problem. Y'all have a good one.
You too, sir. Thank you.
Okay.